I'm Laura McNeil, CEO of the CMT Research Foundation, and I am genuinely glad that you carved out time to join us. Here's why we wanted to do this webinar. Every year, I talk to people who are on the fence about the convention. Is it worth the flight, the hotel, taking time away from work or family? And tonight, our goal is simple. We want to give you enough of a real picture of what these 3 days actually look like so you can make that decision with confidence, whichever way it goes. So let's start with the basics. The 2026 CMT Research Convention runs September 24th through the 26th at the Royal Sonesta Boston, right in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thursday and Friday are built for the science. If you're a researcher, someone in industry, or an investor, this is where you want to be. Patients and caregivers are welcome to attend for those days too, but I want to be upfront that the programming leans research forward. And Friday, I'm especially excited about this one because we're going to hear a keynote from Dr. Anna Greka, founder of the Ladders to Cures Scientific Accelerator at the Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard. It's a talk I think will resonate no matter which side of the room you're sitting on. We're going to end Friday's session with a kickoff of Patient Day. So this will be a research session that's mixed with patients, and we're going to have an open forum. This starts at 5 p.m., and we're going to give you more details about that later in the webinar. Then Saturday shifts completely. That day belongs to patients and families. It's built around you, your experience, your questions, and scientists aren't just permitted to attend, they're encouraged to. Saturday is really where the research community and the people it serves sits down together face to face. Now, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my first experience with the CMTRF convention. So as I mentioned, I'm the CEO of the foundation. I'm coming up on 2 years. So 2 years ago, I was just deciding on the role. Now, my father had been diagnosed with CMT in the early 2000s. And as I was deciding on this role, I knew I was having some symptoms, but they were different from what my dad talked about. And so I wasn't convinced what I was experiencing was CMT. I accepted the role at CMTRF anyway. I wanted to be here and support this mission. And I attended that convention, kind of sat in the back. Nobody knew who I was. I sat with patients. I listened to researchers' presentations. And it was from that room that I had the confidence to order my genetic test. As a newly diagnosed patient, I can't emphasize enough how valuable that experience was for me. To be surrounded by not only other patients, but the researchers that work day in and day out on bringing treatments and cures for CMT to market was absolutely life-changing. And this is the whole reason why this convention exists, bringing forward progress for treatments and cures. And we know that that progress on CMT treatments moves faster when researchers, industry, and patients are all in the same room, instead of each group working in its own silos. When a scientist hears directly from someone living with CMT, that changes what they study. When a patient hears directly from someone developing a treatment, that changes what they hope for and what they ask for. I don't want to be the only one making this case tonight, so I've brought 2 people here to share that idea from 2 completely different vantage points. So later tonight, you're going to hear from Dr. Megan Drummond, our Vice President of Research and Drug Development. But first, I want to bring in Susan Rudiger, our founder and Chief Mission Officer, and someone who has lived with CMT her entire life. So Susan, I'll ask you the question I think everyone watching tonight actually wants answered. Why make the trip?
Thanks, Laura. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad to have this opportunity to talk to everyone about the research convention. So, as Laura said, we designed Saturday to be for the patient community, but the whole convention in itself is pretty unique. We've got 2 days dedicated to science. That's Thursday and Friday, the 24th and 25th. But Friday night, we've got a really interesting opportunity to connect people with the researchers through a town hall forum. So what you'll find at the research convention are 3 very distinct things. First, you'll find really unique opportunities to participate in the research, and for the first time ever, a clinical trial fair. The second thing that you'll find will be unique conversations with people in the CMT community. And the third thing that you'll be able to find is that the connections with all of the people who are living with CMT and all of the people who are working in CMT. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about these unique opportunities to participate. So Friday night at 5 o'clock at the Royal Sonesta, we are hosting a town hall. That town hall will have a panel of patients on the stage, as you can see here, but the room is filled with researchers, drug developers, people from industry. And this is your chance to tell the people who are working on CMT exactly what it is that you are looking for in treatments. So we have this panel to kind of start the conversation, but there were also plenty of people in the room who have CMT. And we want it to be a true town hall style. We start a couple questions on the panel, and we want people in the room living with CMT to answer the questions that the pharma people are asking in the room. So they may ask you, what kind of a medicine would you be willing to take? What kind of side effects would you be willing to accept? What do you want a medicine to do for you? My answer is slow the progression, stop the progression, reverse the progression. But then I think that there's a side of CMT that the pharma industry doesn't see so much. And this is a real opportunity to talk about that. Like, what are some of the psychosocial elements of living with CMT? I mean, I can see it in my family that there are people who are afraid to leave the house because they don't have the confidence that the building they're going to is going to be accessible to them. Or they don't go to a cocktail party because, quite frankly, they don't know what the bathroom situation is going to be like and if that will be accessible to them. I've seen addiction, I've seen anxiety, I've seen depression, and we just don't talk about that. The scientific community doesn't really understand the long-term effects of CMT on a family. This is the opportunity for you all to talk about that. So I hope that you will come to participate on in that town hall. That's Friday night, September 25th at 5 o'clock. After the town hall, we then have a dinner for everyone. So we hope you'll come and participate in that. Then on Saturday, we'll have other opportunities for you to participate in research. The first time ever, we are hosting a clinical trial fair. You heard right. There are enough clinical trials going on right now that there will be a unique dedicated room set up for all the different companies. And you, as a person living with CMT or in the CMT community, can walk through, just like you would a job fair, table to table. Am I eligible? When is it going to start? How do I sign up? How do I learn more? So a clinical trial fair, isn't that an exciting advancement in the world of CMT? I'm really excited about that. But then we also have two other opportunities that are happening exactly at the same time as our Saturday meeting. One, you can participate in a new technology that is called Dancer. What that is it's kind of blends um, video taken from your iPhone, video of yourself from way back when, even, uses AI and it uses the way your body moves. And the whole point of Dancer is to say, can we measure advancement of the disease enough so then we can measure whether a drug is working? And we want to be able to measure it quickly and we want to be able to measure it really succinctly. So that's Dancer. You will have an opportunity to have yourself filmed, participate in this study, and then be followed by Dr. Pernice throughout the whole process, throughout his study, which is a 3-year study. So you can do that while you're there. You walk into the room, he asks you, can you go up the stairs? You do that, and the whole time he's videoing you with his phone, and then he'll capture that information. We have room for about 20 people throughout the day who can participate there. We are also having a really unique and really new opportunity for people in the CMT world, and that's to have hearing assessments done. This company called Shoebox is coming, and you can use an iPad and you can take a hearing test there. You'll get the results of your hearing test, and you'll have an opportunity to talk with one of the top hearing experts in the world from University of Maryland to talk about the way that your hearing test shows up and then how you can get more information about it. So it's basically a free hearing test, and you can learn, could CMT be the reason for your loss of hearing? So those are four really cool ways for you to participate in research at our research convention. We also foster really great, unique conversations. One of the things I'm really excited about is we have confirmed a participant from the Novartis trial. This is a drug for CMT1A, and the trial is happening right now in Canada. One of the first patients dosed in Quebec is coming down to our convention to talk about his experience and how he made the decision to participate in a clinical trial that is a gene therapy. So that's going to be very interesting. You may remember last year we heard from Cara Leith, and she participated in the NMD pharma trial. NMD will be in the room, and they will be talking about what their plans are for their next step in their clinical trial. So you'll get a big update about that, and they will have a table at the clinical trial fair. Also, there will be plenty of people in the room who are planning trials. So I want to kind of call out this picture here. This is a group of people who are living with a type of CMT. And you can see in the blue shirt in the center, that's Dr. Brett McCrae. He's a clinician at the University of Michigan, and he studies this particular type of CMT. But the man in the jacket, in the brown jacket, that's David Goldstein. He has a company called Actio Bio, and he's developing a drug for the people who you see sitting there. So, what we do is we bring the experts, the clinical experts, the drug development experts, and the patients all in the same room. We can learn from each other. We can build better drugs. We can build better connections. That's what this research convention is all about. Lastly, we have a unique community. I want to talk a lot about that. This is one of my favorite pictures, and this is a group of very dedicated patients and advocates, along with two scientists who are also patients and advocates. The two guys in the back, in the center, that's Rob Pryor, and he is a scientist in Belgium, and he's studying CMT. And then the guy just behind him with the glasses and the big smile, that's Dr. Wolfgang Pernice, and he's the one who invented Dancer. So he's a patient himself. He comes to this every year and learns a lot as a patient, learns a lot as a researcher, and it was from this community that this idea for Dancer was born. So we bring everyone together in the room. And as you heard Laura, also pictured here, talk about when she was there for the first time, she understood a little bit more about what she was feeling, what she was experiencing. She had that opportunity to build connections with other people living with CMT. One thing I've heard a lot about are people who are parents and spouses who come, and they hear stories from patients on the stage, and they look at their partner who's living with CMT and said, I didn't know that this was part of it. Are you dealing with that? And it starts these really interesting, helpful, incredible conversations that then extend after the convention, develops compassion for each other and support, So this convention, it does all of the above. I mean, it's primarily a research convention, right? We're the CMT Research Foundation. We focus on drug development. Saturday, the 26th, will highlight the role that you, as a person who is in this community, what you can do to advance drug development. And the thing that I like the most about our convention is that it's um, filled with people who are problem solvers. Even the patients in the room, they're there because they want to be a part of the solution. So you're there with like-minded people with CMT, like-minded people who want to see an end to this thing, and you're in a room where it all comes together. So I hope that you'll join us. I don't think that there's anywhere else on this earth where you can get all of these things happening at one time with this very specific focus. So please come Friday night. If you're a patient, come at 5 o'clock for this town hall. Even if you're not on the panel, you will have an opportunity for your voice to be heard. And then please stay Saturday. We start at 8:30 and we're hoping to end around 3 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier. But please come. I hope you'll have the opportunity to participate in research. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Meg Drummond, who's going to tell you all the reasons why, if you're a scientist, why you should be in the room. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. And I think a lot of the reasons I'm about to tell you about are the same that Susan just nailed right on the head, which is that as we think about the program and as we have pulled together what we want this to look like, one of our main themes that we focus on is that progress doesn't happen in silos. So one of the things that's unique about this particular convention is that we were very thoughtful, and the scientific programming committee that helped us to pull this program together was very thoughtful in saying, what are the key topics not just in CMT research from a discovery standpoint, like what do we know about the peripheral nerve, but what are all the things that we need to know as a community, and how do we pull people together so we can take these early learnings in research and apply them and work with partners in industry, work with investors, and then also continue to keep it in the context of patients and families. So for me, my story is similar to Laura in that my very first experience when joining the foundation was immediately to attend the convention. That was last year around this time, and it was a hugely impactful thing. It was the first time that I got to be in a room dedicated specifically to CMT, surrounded by both patients and researchers, all making it happen together. It's one of the things that's unique. It's one of the things that we drive at the Research Foundation to make progress happen faster, is let's pull everybody together in the same room at the same time. So we have 2 days of scientific programming, and we designed these, as I said before, to accelerate progress. So on Thursday, we have scientific sessions that are focused on for what researchers, industry, and investors need, though patients are also welcome to attend both our Thursday and Friday sessions. Thursday, as I said, is research forward, and I'll get into that programming in just a little bit to give you more context around it, but it's a half day. Friday, we continue the Research Forward programming, as Laura mentioned, with our keynote from Dr. Anna Greka from the Broad Institute. And then Friday night is our crossover event. Susan talked a little bit about that, so I won't belabor that point, but I think it's a good way to highlight the synergies that we have between patients and scientists and how we can all learn from each other and inform it and really make it real. Put the sense of urgency behind a researcher, take it away from a tube and a bench to a face of a human that you want to help and that is looking to you for answers. So, from a scientist perspective, it's hugely impactful to have this sort of conference designed that really bridges all aspects of research and development. So, if we look at now the program at a glance, let's talk about some numbers. I'm a data scientist. Well, I'm a scientist. I love data. So let's talk through these, right? So we have pulled together 28 speakers and moderators, big hitters in the field of CMT research and drug development. We have 6 moderated and curated sessions. Many of those also include a panel discussion. So with that panel discussion, the reason it's nice is that not only do you hear the scientists talk and the expert talk about their particular research and field questions about the work that they just presented to you, but afterwards, by holding this panel of everybody who just spoke, you can foster a really great discussion on the topic more holistically. This is where you can get really good cross-fertilization of ideas. You can do what scientists do best, which is push back on each other, ask the critical questions, and help, again, drive progress and inform the way that we all think about research together. We have 7 abstract sessions. So these are the previous talks I mentioned were invited talks. We also open this up to the scientific community to say, come tell us about your latest and greatest work. So we have 7 abstract talks. We have 4 industry organizations that are presenting. And as I've mentioned before, 2 days of programming. So those are our numbers. Let's get into the program itself. So how will these 2 days unfold? Well, we start on Thursday morning with an emerging researcher forum. This is an event that's meant to foster the next generation of CMT scientists. And if you're of that generation, so what we consider the emerging researchers are scientists that are working on their terminal degree. So whether that's an MD or a PhD, your master's, or within 10 years of having completed that. So it's a very generous definition. We can continue to call ourselves young and emerging for quite some time. And the benefit is that you get to be in a room, not only with each other to share ideas and to identify how can we collaborate together, what are some innovative opportunities where we may be able to push the field in a way where people haven't thought about it before. But we also have leading experts in the field from across multiple areas of CMT research to be able to sit down with you and tell you a bit about their perspective. And so it's a real give and take from the emerging generation of scientists, as well as the more seasoned generation of scientists, sharing ideas and learning from each other. After that wraps up, we have a welcome and an opening talk. We then have a session that's specific to CMT biology. And you may say, well, that's odd because everybody here should know about CMT. If we're pulling in like scientists and I'm in CMT research, why would we have a session that's specifically dedicated to CMT biology? Well, the reason is twofold. One is it never hurts to go back to the basics. I love when I get to hear someone describe something that I already know, but hear it in their words. The other is, as I mentioned before, we've pulled in a lot of investors. We've pulled in pharma and biotech and companies and people who are interested in investing in CMT. And so let's talk about the landscape starting from the very beginning. From there, we transition. CMT is genetic, right? So let's dedicate some time to talking about the latest and greatest in genetics and genomics. What Marina Kennerson told me recently, and she's going to moderate the session on genetics and genomics, she said, as a geneticist, my job is not done until every case of CMT has been solved. And we are still far from that. It might shock many of you to know that only about 40% of CMT cases actually have a genetic diagnosis. That's far and away what we would expect from something with a known hereditary component. So Marina is particularly interested, and we're going to hear a little bit about the dark genome, and that's the regions of our DNA that aren't directly coding. They have regulatory elements, little strips of DNA that tell other genes when to turn on, when to turn off, what other factors could be turned on, and so forth. It's largely unexplored, and the scientific community is just beginning to learn more about it. I think it's a fascinating topic, and I'm excited that we'll be able to highlight it a little bit in our convention. From there, we go to a session dedicated specifically to sensory neuropathy. We think of CMT frequently, we think about the manifestations of CMT that happen in the neuromuscular components, right? The weakness in our hands and our feet. And what often does not get talked about are the sensory aspects. So pain, hearing, vision. And so we've pulled together scientists who have expertise in this area to come and speak directly to this topic and to begin the conversation. After that, we'll wrap up with posters and a reception. One of the ways that we've designed this is to hold everybody hostage with food and drinks. So we'll feed you in the morning and we'll feed you throughout the day. And what that does is it makes it so that you don't have to go elsewhere. It keeps everything all together and the good conversations going well into the evening so that we can wake up happily exhausted the next morning on Friday and get going again. That's when we'll hear from Anna Greka, our keynote speaker. Immediately following that, we're going to get into the state of gene therapy. Gene therapy is a very hot topic, given that this is, again, a hereditary condition. Addressing the underlying genetics is a very clear way to move forward with progress, and the field has made a lot of advancements. And so we're going to talk about that through a series of talks in that session. Following that, we're going to jump over to our oral abstract. So this session is a mixture of things. This is our opening to the community to say, what are the greatest ideas you've had lately? What is some of your most recent research that maybe we don't know about that you would be interested in telling the rest of the community about? So we'll have about an hour and a half of those and lunch, followed by a session dedicated to clinical endpoints. So as discoveries are made, as we have drug candidates that could move forward, one of the main areas in the field that's needed to advance these meaningfully into a clinical trial is the ability to measure progress. So what does that mean? It means that if you take a drug, how do we know that that drug is working? What's going to be a very responsive endpoint or clinical measure so that we can say that we're seeing a meaningful change over the time period designated for the clinical trial? Following that, we have an investment panel. How can you think, if you're a scientist, how can you think about your research in the world of drug development and in getting investments to help to continue to fuel your research? Lastly, we're going to switch over to the patient forum, and this is what Susan highlighted earlier, and I'll just reiterate the point from the scientist perspective, which is that there's nothing that drives home the urgency and the importance and the impact of the work that you do more than hearing patients talk about it. It's the thing that drives me every single day in thinking about thinking about the science that I find thrilling from a scientific aspect, but in a way, it often feels meaningless until I can think about how I can apply that and make a difference in the world through the life of a patient. So I think that this is a unique aspect of what we do in terms of science, bridging that science all the way to the patient and really bringing it home. Again, because like I said, we hold you hostage with food and drinks and good conversation. There'll be a reception, and then we'll transition over into patient day. And we hope research will stay for patient day, just as we hope patients will join us for the research day. So to wrap it up, as I've said, we've got 3 audiences. We have 1 room. We don't run parallel tracks because we think that the best conversation happens when everybody's together talking about it, researchers, industry and investors, and our patients and their advocates. So with that, I think we'll open it up to the full group.
All right. Thank you so much, Meg and Susan. We're going to open it up for questions. One of the benefits of doing this through a webinar versus just sending out more emails is that you can ask questions live to us. So at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a button that says Q&A, and you can put your questions in, and then we will see them pop up on a list, and I'm going to be reading them to both Susan and Meg, or one or the other. And we're happy to stay on as long as you guys have questions. So to get started, as a first-time attendee, and I guess I'll pose this to both, so thinking for as a researcher, Meg, and then Susan as a patient, how do I decide which day is worth traveling for, or which talk should I emphasize for? Where should I go for that information?
Well, our agenda is on our website. And I know that that was linked in the chat. Thank you, David, for putting that in there. So that is a good place to look, but it really kind of depends on what you're hoping to get out of it. Thursday and Friday are really, it's science-based. And for a lot of the patients in the room, unless you're a scientist, a lot of it's going to be over my head. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So come if you're curious, you're welcome. We don't shut anybody out. Come if you're curious, but be prepared for some pretty technical content. Saturday is not technical at all. And if we're too technical, stop us because that we don't want to be too technical. We've done that a couple times and learned from great feedback. The whole point is to make the science accessible to everyone who's curious. The only thing I will say is, the talks are interesting, they're good, they're entertaining. But, for someone who has a hard time sitting still, like young children, we don't say they're not welcome. They're absolutely welcome, but they might have a hard time sitting still. We don't provide entertainment for young kids. So keep that in mind, but come and look at our agenda and see if there's one thing in particular you're interested in. And of course, you can always reach out and ask us.
Perfect. I think that answers for both.
I was going to say.
So here's a question from the audience. If I'm attending virtually, what sessions are available for me?
Ooh, that's a good question, Laura. I think, what did we decide on Saturday? Did we
Oh,
decide the whole thing is virtual?
yeah.
Yay. Okay, that was
Yeah.
up for conversation this year. So Saturday you can attend all of it virtually, and we'll have a virtual moderator. So if you have questions, if you want to interact, you can do that with somebody who's in the room, and you can have your question represented. That's for Saturday. What about for Thursday and Friday, Meg?
Same for Thursday and Friday. It'll be, we have full virtual attendance. You'll have to have your own happy hour at the end of it, but
Yeah.
we'll figure out how to host a virtual happy hour for those who are virtual.
That's right. And virtual is great. I love that we offer that. It's not easy for all patients to travel. And we love that we can bring this research to you like we do here. But I encourage you, if possible, to come into the room because there's nothing like getting a picture like we saw with researchers and industry leaders who are working on treatments for your type of CMT. It's a life-changing experience. So if you can be there, please join us in person and reach out if you have any questions about that. All right. So, Susan, are there any age restrictions to participate in the research convention?
Definitely not. Not from a patient perspective. So please feel free to come and you can bring your children. I can't promise that it'll be exciting and fun for them, but we don't kick anybody out.
Perfect. All right. For someone with CMT2, but an unknown genetic subtype, would attending the conference still be worthwhile, even if some research studies require a confirmed gene? It's a great question.
It is a great question. And I can answer from the patient perspective, and then I'll have Meg answer as a geneticist. But I can tell you, like, NMD Pharma doesn't care what type of CMT you have. So you can come and you can learn about their clinical trial and find out how you can learn if you can be eligible. And you can talk to the folks at NMD Pharma. So that's a great example of something that's totally relevant to you, even if you don't have that genetic confirmation. But even the opportunity to advocate for yourself. So maybe, well, there will be plenty of geneticists in the room to talk about genetic testing and genetic discovery. You can advocate for why people should keep going, the scientists should keep going for that. You can connect with a couple geneticists and find out maybe if there's technology you haven't already done for genetic testing. Maybe you can learn, is there something more thorough than the general panel that you've done? So I would say that this conference is definitely not limited to people who have a genetic diagnosis. Meg, what do you have to add to that?
I completely agree with you. I highlighted the point that CMT is an inherited condition and that there's a lot that we know about the genetics, but still a lot that we have left to learn about the genetics. And some of those talks on the genetics of CMT, though they will be technical, can be interesting and informative. And there's still things that we're learning constantly about the genetics. And so, to Susan's point, could give you some ideas or shed some light onto new learnings in genetics or new particular tests that haven't been used before that may be able to uncover a genetic diagnosis for you. And the flip side of that, there's a lot of strategies right now that are in development, a lot of research strategies for addressing CMT from a general perspective. So, whether you're a type 1 or type 2, strategies that promote nerve health and nerve survival will be totally applicable whether or not a person has a genetic diagnosis. And so, learning about that, learning about what it means for a nerve to exist in a stress state versus a healthy state, and the ways that people are thinking about how to mitigate that stress and to promote healthy functioning of the nerve and survival of the nerve and the survival of the neuromuscular junction are definitely, I mean, I find interesting and fascinating, but applicable regardless as to whether or not if you have a type 2, that gives you a lot of information and some things to think about. And we'll be in the same room if you're thinking about the scientific sessions and you're a patient, be in the same room with scientists who think about this topic day in and day out. It's an opportunity to pick their brains. And again, speaking from the scientist perspective, I love it when a patient asks me about science. I love the opportunity to make something accessible and to help somebody feel like they've gained information from this very small niche thing that I know a lot deeply about. So the opportunity to share is huge.
Perfect. Meg, for researchers that are on the fence about submitting an abstract, what's
Mhm.
the case for doing it, especially, a month and a half out from the convention?
Sure. The case for doing it is that the more you talk about the science, the stronger it gets. So even if the idea is or the project isn't fully complete and you're in the early stages of getting results, but you're open to talking about it, there's nothing like good feedback from people in the community. I have found that idea that I've put out there, when I've presented at posters at scientific conferences, I always walk away with great feedback from people who have come and looked at my poster. The times that I've gotten the less good feedback is when the idea is fully baked, it's a pretty project, and it's got a bow on it, and there's not that much to ask about it, right? So I think that, as scientists, to the extent that people are able to, early and frequent conversations about our science makes it better. It also can open up some collaborative opportunities. You could say, here's an area where I'm stuck. I'm having a really
Yeah,
difficult time sequencing the peripheral nerve. And someone may come and visit your poster and be able to offer some advice. So I think that's
That's
another
right.
reason is it science doesn't always have to be pretty and perfect to make it valuable. And so often it isn't. And the messiness, those unexpected findings is where we really grow and learn.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Good point. I guess for both of you, from your perspective, if someone out there, a researcher or a patient, has attended one of our conventions before, what's unique and special about this coming year? So, Meg, maybe you can answer that first.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the sessions, as I highlighted before, that's unique and special is our focus on sensory aspects. And so, a lot of what we've talked about. So, last year's session, I thought was, the scientific programming did a program committee did a fantastic job of really weaving together multiple themes in CMT. And this year, we've added to it. So, we said, let's talk about the sensory aspect. Let's talk about the nerves that are questionably peripheral. If you talk about the auditory nerve, some people say that's a peripheral nerve and others not, but it's a myelinated nerve that can have dysfunction when a patient has CMT, and thinking about how we address that. Also, some of the therapeutic strategies that are being evaluated in sensory systems in the context of inherited neuropathies or demyelinating disorders are very much applicable to other research happening in CMT. So I'm happy to be able to add that session in particular. Another thing that sets it apart is, good reason to go again is that we're going to have basic scientists and academic scientists in the same room as investors and VC, and in the same room as biotech and pharma and clinicians. And so we've got the full spectrum of development all together in one space, interacting and thinking about this complex problem together. So I would come and be a part of that.
Perfect. What do you think, Susan?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot that's different this year. For the first time ever, a clinical trial fair. So, last year we had different companies who were running clinical trials in the room, but there wasn't a forum where you could just go and meet with them. You had to have the gumption to go up with them, and not everybody has that. And so this year we're putting them in a room, a lot like a job fair. You heard me talk about it with tables, and you can walk around from table to table. So you don't have to approach, which I know can be a little intimidating, an executive from a pharma company. They'll be there at tables where you can have these conversations. So that's one thing that's different. Hopefully, they're a lot more approachable and easy to connect with. And then the second really big difference is the fact that we're having two areas of research where you can participate. The dancer, which is the virtual movement that Dr. Pernice created, and then the hearing tests. And as you heard Meg just talk about, is your hearing loss related to CMT or not? Let's get some tests and figure out if it's there and then give you some resources. So hopefully you walk away with some information about your experience as well.
Perfect. Um, Meg, I know for me as a brand new patient coming in the room, I was pretty intimidated, right? Once I was there, I felt completely warm and at ease. But I'm wondering from your perspective, if you could just speak to the value of having a CMT patient in a room where a researcher can meet somebody who has the condition they're working on. How meaningful is that?
Oh, it's difficult to put into words, to be honest. The first time as a scientist that I attended a convention similar to this, so I'll say this was not the first time I had been in a room or at a convention that was focused on both the patient and the disease. The first time I did it, I mean, it was like brought tears to my eyes. It made everything that I did and that I studied feel so much more tangible and so much more meaningful and so much more urgent, right? It takes it from an impact statement and a grant saying that this is what I want to do and this is what I want to achieve to here is a person that my research can directly benefit. And that when I read in a textbook that this is what a patient is experiencing, here it is in real life. And
Mhm.
again, it's difficult to put into words. It's the thing that motivated me to come to the CMT Research Foundation is exactly that, the opportunity to be closer to patients and have that patient experience inform my research and just drive it home every single day.
And
It's like,
conversely, I just have to say, like, as a patient, getting to meet people who, I mean, I'll never forget when I met the people from DTX Pharma around COVID, and they're going in every day during COVID to keep the experiments alive, and it's like, wait, you're doing that for us and for me and for my family? Like, yes, I'm so committed, and you're committed. It creates like, it puts the humanity in the drug development process because we relate to each other as humans, And it makes me go home and say, okay, Rafa, she's got me, she's doing this for me. And it's just amazing when you meet people who are working day in and day out to understand and to help you and your family. Look at it, brings tears to my eyes. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about Rafa. She's amazing, but like with every researcher, to have that opportunity, it just gives me hope.
I'll also add to that quickly, which is that um, as a research scientist, I don't think of myself as an intimidating person. And so, I brush my teeth every morning, just like every other person here, and get dressed the same way. And, I may have very deep, specific knowledge on a particular topic, but sometimes it's like, learning different languages. I've just chosen to learn the science or the language of science. And so again, it's my feeling about it, which, and I think most scientists, any scientist feels the same way, which is please talk to me. Let's have a conversation about it.
Mhm.
I love that. So there's no question that's inappropriate or out of the bounds to ask a scientist about their science. The one thing you may have to caution yourself against is like, make sure you've gone to the bathroom, you're well fed, because the answer you're going to get is unlikely to be succinct.
All right. So, from the audience, as someone who doesn't know what type I have, is there a chance to talk to people about learning more about it and perhaps identifying what type of CMT I have?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that question. We will have a session on genetics, and Marina Kennerson is a geneticist out of University of Sydney in Australia, and she is here to talk about genetic testing. And so she'll have a short 20-minute, I think, talk about the pros and cons of genetic testing and the reason to have that done. But she's in the room. So you can go talk with her and you can ask her your questions about your symptoms and what does she know and what does she think. By the way, Meg Drummond, right here, she's a geneticist also. Like she's not practicing the discovery of genetics at this particular moment. She's helping us with CMT and finding genetic medicines, but she knows a lot about genetic testing and how to find different areas of um, our DNA where genes can hide and find. So yes, there will be a lot of experts in the room who are related to genetic medicine. If you want to attend the talk on Friday, is the genetic discovery talk, right, Meg?
Yeah, that's Friday morning.
That will be for scientists, but you're welcome to come. But if you just want to sit and have a chat with a geneticist, you will have that opportunity. Come seek me out if you come, and then I will make introductions to all the people. I'll just walk you
Actually,
on
Susan,
over.
I misspoke. It's as I said that it's Thursday afternoon is
Third,
the
okay.
genetics heavy. Friday morning is the session specifically on gene therapies and genetic medicines.
Great, thank you. All right. So there's a reason to be there for all 3 days. Or come to the, so this is another thing that a lot of people who have CMT or in the community do. If they see something on the agenda on Thursday or Friday that's interesting to them, they will make sure that they're in the room for that session. And then they'll go be a tourist in Boston and sightsee. And then they'll come back and then they'll go eat, some yummy seafood and then they'll come back. So you can do that. You can come in and out throughout the whole thing, especially during the scientific days. If you're a member of the CMT community, you're welcome. Welcome to come and go.
That's perfect. Well, I want to remind everybody again that the convention runs September 24th to the 26th at the Royal Sonesta Boston in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And thank you for your time tonight. We're really grateful that you came to ask questions and learn more about our convention. And just for this group, we are going to offer a discount code for registration. That's going to be all caps, the word webinar. My team's going to drop it in the chat here in a second. And that's going to bring back the early bird pricing for both researchers and patients. You can use this through the end of the day tomorrow. So when you go to register, just put in webinar and you're going to get a discount for attending. And I'll give you a hint. We're not going to be policing this and cross references to this list. So if you have CMT family members, if you have a physician that you want to invite to attend, if you have friends that you want to travel with, please send the code to them. This is open to you. We really just want you to come and experience the convention with us. We want to meet you in person. All three of us, plus the rest of the team and our board of directors, will be there and really get you to experience the science firsthand. So Again, you can go, they just dropped in the link, but you can register at cmtconvention.cmtrf.org. It's in the chat. Thank you so much for coming tonight. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.